When you solve equations involving rational expressions, first what you could do is, what you want to do is get a common denominator, and then once you have a common denominator, so if I had 1/2 plus x over 2 plus 3 over 2 equals 2x over 2, what I can do once I have a common denominator, I can cancel out the denominators and set this and solve for x in this expression. Another thing that I can do is if I have two fractions that are equal, such as 1, 2, and 3, these are just two fractions that are equal, I can cross multiply. So down here, number 4, I cannot cross multiply because I'm adding or subtracting two fractions. So you still want to, when you're solving, you still want to look at your restrictions and make sure that if your solution is a restriction, that it's not a solution. So for example, in this first problem, if I ended up solving for x and getting x equals 6, it could not be a solution because if I put 6 in here, I'd be dividing by 0, and that's undefined. So you still want to look at your restrictions. So for this, I'm just going to cross multiply. So I'm going to do 4 times x minus 6 equals 7x. And then I'm going to have 4x minus 24 equals 7x. Subtract 4x, so I'll have negative 24 equals 3x, and x equals negative 8. So if I look at my restrictions, I can't have x be 6 or 0. So because my solution is not one of those restrictions, this is my answer. Okay, the second one. I'm going to cross multiply, and I get 7a minus 56 equals 6a plus 3, because I multiplied this by 3. So I'm going to get my a on one, a's together, so I'm going to subtract 6a from both sides, so I'm going to have a minus 56 equals 3, and then adding 56 will be 59. So I'm going to look at my restrictions. I can't have a be equal to 8 or negative 1/2. And since 59 is not one of those restrictions, that's going to be my answer. For the third one, when I cross multiply, because I have two fractions that are equal, I'm going to have 24 equals, and what I'm going to do is when I multiply these two, I'm going to need to do the distributive property. So I'm going to end up with m squared minus 2m plus 3m is plus m, and then minus 6. So I have a quadratic. So if I have a quadratic, what I want to do is get one side equal to 0. So I have m squared plus m minus 30. And then I'm going to solve this by factoring. So this is going to be m plus 6 times m minus 5 equals 0. So my solutions are going to be negative 6, or m equals negative 6 and 5. So looking back at my restrictions, my only restriction is that m can't be 2, so I'm good. So this is my solution right here. Okay, if you cannot just cross multiply like this one, what you want to do is just get a common denominator. So my common denominator is going to be 2k. So this expression over here needs 2. This needs a k, and this side needs a 2. So I'll have 2k, 2k, 2k. So now my numerator is going to be 6 minus k equals 24. So k equals negative 18. And when I do my restrictions, k can't be equal to 0. So we're good because negative 18 is not one of the restrictions. All right, number 6. So if you have a whole number, what we can do is put a 1 underneath it. In order to find a common denominator, I'm going to factor out. So I have p over p minus 2 plus 2 over 1 equals 8 over p plus 2, p minus 2. So that means that the left-hand side over here needs a p plus 2 on the top and on the bottom. The middle term needs p plus 2 and p minus 2, which for short reasons, I can just multiply this by p squared minus 4. So this is going to be times p squared minus 4, which is p plus 2, p minus 2. Now, the reason I put p squared minus 4 up there is because I know that I'm going to want to distribute eventually, and it's going to be easier to distribute those two terms than it would be for me to FOIL that through again. So now that I have all of these denominators the same, I can just focus on my numerator. So I'm going to distribute this through. So I'm going to have p squared plus 2p plus 2p squared minus 8 equals 8. So I'm going to have this quadratic here. So this is going to be p squared plus 2p squared is 3p squared plus 2p, and then I'm going to subtract 8, so I'm going to have minus 16 equals 0. So looking at this, I can factor out by grouping. So I'm going to find factors of negative 48 that add up to 2. So that's going to be 3p squared plus 8p minus 6p minus 16 equals 0. Or I think I might have said 42, but I meant 48. So take out a p. So I have 3p plus 8. Copy over 3p plus 8. And then I have a negative 2. So I'm going to have p minus 2 times 3p plus 8 equals 0. So that means that p equals 2 and negative 3/8. So let's go back through and see if, is this a restriction? So we have p equals 2 and p equals negative 8/3. So I can't have p can't be negative 2 or 2. So if p can't be negative 2 or 2, then this cannot be a solution. So my only solution is going to be negative 8/3. Okay, oops, I'm seeing that I skipped number 4. So for a common denominator is you're going to want to have, you have a 3, an n, and a 6. So the common denominator is going to be 6n. So I need to change each one of these fractions into 6n. So I'm going to multiply the left-hand side. This side needs a 2n. The middle expression needs a 6. And the right-hand side just needs an n. So my denominators are all going to be 6n, so I can cross off the denominators, and my numerator is going to be 8n minus 42 equals n. So by solving for n, I'm going to get negative 42 equals negative 7n. So n equals 6. So now I have to go back through, and before I let that be my answer, I'm going to check my restrictions. So my only restriction is that n can't be 0. So since n equals 6 is not a part of the restrictions, that is my solution. So number 7. I'm going to factor out my denominator to get a common denominator. So I can factor out a 3. So I have 3 times the quantity w minus 1 minus 1 over w minus 1 equals w over 9. So if I have a 9 right here, it means that I need to have a 9 in the middle one, and I need to have a 9 over here, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 3, or the top and the bottom by 3, and then my right hand side needs the expression w minus 1. So my numerator is going to turn into 39 minus 19 equals w squared minus w. So I'll have 20 equals w squared minus w. So again, I'm going to have a quadratic, so I'm going to get one side equal to 0 and factor it out. So it's going to be w minus 5 times w plus 4. So my two solutions are going to be 5 and negative 4. So now I need to go back up here and see if these two are restricted at all. So my restrictions are going to be w can't be 1 because of this and here. So this is my solution. And then the last problem, where did number 8? Okay, number 8. Again, you have a whole number, so I'm going to put a 1 underneath here. So my common denominator is going to be x plus 3. So I'm going to put x plus 3, or x plus 6, over x plus 3 equals 2 times x plus 3 over x plus 3 minus 5x plus 12 over x plus 3. So I can cancel out my numerator or cancel out my denominator and just look at my numerator. So I have x plus 6 equals 2x plus 6 minus 5x minus 12. So a common mistake is for people to miss this 12 being a negative. So I'm going to get x plus 6 equals negative 3x minus 6. And then I'm going to add 3x, so I get 4x equals negative 12. X equals negative 3. So let's look at this. We have our restrictions are x can't be negative 3. So if this was our solution, and we know that x can't be negative 3, this means that there's actually going to be no solution.